Hey everybody, welcome back to Unpredictable. It feels like a long time since I've done a podcast and I'm kind of nervous, but thankfully I have a guest to help me out today. Renee.
Hello, everyone.
Guys, I made a completely stupid mistake of not mentioning her on my other podcast. So, we're gonna just do a little introduction of who you are and how we met and why we're besties.
Okay.
So, do you want to tell your side of the story, maybe, of our
Um,
meeting and whatnot?
yeah, so my name's Renee Schrock. I'm 22 years old, and Karina and I we went to school together ever since like elementary, probably.
Yeah.
Um, and then we didn't really become good friends until like my junior year of high school, her sophomore year. And yeah, we've just been good friends ever since.
How our friendship started, I think we were both like having boy problems.
Yeah.
And we stayed after school and told each other boy problems. So that was a great time.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty much it. It's literally pretty much it. We've just been besties since then. And now our life obviously looks different now that we're out of school. And it just pretty much looks like when we have time, she comes to my house now, which is super amazing. I love that she
Yeah.
can come to my own house. We used to just obviously go to my parents' house, but now it's my own house. Well, Tyrell's as well. But we get to come
Sometimes
and
I
hang out
miss
in
your
mine.
parents' house though, actually.
Yeah, I feel that. I called it home the other day. I was like, Karina, what the tar? That's not your home. Anyways, should we get right on into it?
I guess.
Okay. I'm a little nervous about this podcast because it's such a touchy subject. But disclaimer, we are not
Huge
experts.
disclaimer.
Yes, we are just kind of saying our thoughts, our opinions, kind of what we found. We have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, just putting that out there.
And if you don't like something that we say or you disagree, we apologize. You can feel free to share your opinion as well. I would be
Yeah.
interested to.
Yeah, share your opinions. We love some good constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Um all right, so the first thing I have is two myths that I guess is in the church maybe, and it says Christians aren't supposed to struggle, and if you do, God doesn't care. So I heard this from a sermon, and I don't think that's true. I think it was like whenever I heard him say that, I was like, I don't think the church believes that. I think it's people in the church who struggle, not the church as a whole. Because like as Christians, we're like, why do we struggle? Like it should be okay. It should be easy. Like all we have to do is follow Christ.
Mm-hmm.
But because that's like what pretty much the world hates, we have the whole world against us. And it's not easy at all. And so like you being and like you're human, you're in the world. No one's life is easy at all. If
Yeah.
it is, good as to you, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It is not something that. I mean, I think Christians are becoming more familiar with it
Yeah.
these days than maybe they used to. But I definitely think it's not necessarily something that they respond to that person. Like, I don't think they respond in that way. I think
Right.
it's more just that person being scared that,
Yeah.
they're doing something wrong or that their relationship with God isn't good enough. And that's why there's that stigma around
Right.
it.
Yeah, it's definitely a stigma. And also like just kind of going off of what she said, like mental health was not really ever talked about. And like in the past year, I feel like it started being talked about. And now that's what everybody talks about. And now it's like, okay, who's really struggling here? Who needs help? And who's someone who is just like, I don't know, struggling with their socialness. Like they just need people to be there for them and to have friends instead of whatever mental issues they possibly might have.
Yeah. And maybe it's the type of thing where, like, or maybe sometimes it can be even more dangerous. And the Christian circles because we just assume that people are, because of the way they act, we just assume that they don't struggle with that. And so
Yeah.
then they don't feel free to talk about it, and
Right.
just kind of is this big circle.
Right. Yeah. The next thing I have, so this is kind of like, so the guy that had talked about the myths, I guess, in the church.
The same one that I listened to?
Yeah.
Okay.
He made a comment of, like, a lot of times people are just like, I just am depressed and that's just how I am. And he made the comment that it might just be things going on in your life. Like, you might need more sleep. You might need better friends or a better job. Some people are just like, no, it's not those things. But I think those things play a huge part in how your mental stability is. Because if you're not, especially if you're getting not enough sleep, it's awful.
Mm-hmm.
And like a job, if you're going to a job every single day that you absolutely hate, yeah, it's gonna not do good things for you. And then friends, like, I don't know. I mean, there's also a thing too of peer pressure, and you have to be in the cool crowd, you have to act a certain way. And so if you're around people like that, I don't think you think of it. But then, like, if let's say you're in that situation and then you get out of it, it's just like, wow, I didn't realize how toxic that was until you get out of it.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, like, I don't know what you think people would blame their mental health struggles on most of the time, but like, there's definitely a lot of factors that play into it, and choices that we need to make for the best outcome.
Yeah.
Like our sleep, our friends, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times those things are just not seen. Like, you don't think about those little things. Not that those things will just completely change your mental stability, but it might help some. I don't know.
But yeah, back to the whole thing about that Christians shouldn't struggle with mental health. It's like, people think that as soon as, or like something that he said in that sermon as well, as soon as you have a relationship with God, then all of that should just go away. As soon as the sin is gone, you no longer struggle. But obviously, like any other sin, it doesn't just go away. And it's, at one quote that he said is, you can love Jesus and still battle depression or anxiety. But yeah, we'll talk more, I guess, about what that looks like.
Right. Something else I wrote down is, a lot of times people are just like, I don't want to go get help. Like, why would I go to a professional? I don't want to do that. But going to professionals, like, a lot of people are just like, oh my word, professionals, that's just their job. They're just getting paid to do what they're doing. Think about it this way. I have never ever thought about this, because that's how I thought too. I was just like, because counseling is something I would like to do, but I don't want to get a degree in it, because then people are just like, she's just doing her job. But then I was watching this YouTube video of someone, like, just people's life stories of what they were struggling with. And there was a worker dealing with this one case, and she noticed that she was getting too close with the child, I guess, that was suffering. And she had to back out, because she was like, this isn't healthy. I can't be her safety. Like, seeing that, and I was just like, okay, let's say you're a counselor. If people are coming to you every single day and are just like, oh my word, I literally want to kill myself. Oh my word, I literally cannot get out of bed. Oh my word, I literally cut myself so bad today because I'm going insane. If you hear stories like that, like, no one wants to hear stories like that over and over and over, because it's gonna destroy their mental health, because you can't fix everything. And so I think it's so wrong to look at counselors that way, just because, I mean, kudos to them for having the, like, mental capacity to want to do that, to be able to listen to those stories.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to have some degrees, or like at least some studies, like do some classes of certain things. But I'm the type of person that I just want to fix everything for someone. I got to get that out of my head now, because I won't be able to do that. Going to professionals, you can tell them like the most basic thing ever and just skim what's going on. But they know what questions to ask, they know what to look for to get to the root of what's going on.
Yeah.
And like friends can help. I totally agree with that. And we have friends for a reason. But this might be kind of outspoken, but I kind of just feel like this is very true. Like if you want to get help and to not want to suffer from whatever you're suffering with, you want to find the root problem. And your friends might be able to help you find the root problem. But I'm guessing the professionals are going to be the ones to find it, not your friends. I think that's kind of a strong opinion.
I mean, it's definitely not all, like, you can't put it all on your friends. It's not their responsibility.
Right.
I think in some cases, going to someone with expert knowledge is needed because, and this kind of goes down the whole line of, is our mental health struggle physical or spiritual? And yeah, as far as going to a counselor or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I think that those are the kinds of people that can maybe help you draw that line as to how much of it is spiritual and how much of it is physical,
Right.
because I think your spiritual health and your mental health are so closely knit together that
Yeah.
depending how you are spiritually, it's hard to, or that mental health struggle is escalated,
Right.
I think. And if you're not spiritually healthy in order to, I guess, take control of it in a way,
Mm-hmm.
then it gets a lot bigger than it actually is. And so I feel
Yeah.
like that's when you need to go to someone who says, okay, this percentage of it is something that you can't control as much, but the
Yeah.
rest of this you need to figure out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I think that's when going to a therapist is helpful.
Yeah.
But like you said, therapists cannot fix all of your
Yeah.
problems. It's a lot of your own choices that come into play.
And also, it depends a lot on the therapist. Like, I think it's good to find someone who can fit your personality really well. Like, not just one counselor is going to be good for every single person. There are some pretty derpy counselors out there. Finding a counselor who's educated on stuff. Maybe it doesn't even have to be a professional, but someone who like has studied like even the brain or something. Like I mean, I hate school, okay? I have literally thought about studying the brain somewhat just so I know a little bit about how the brain works whenever it comes to,
Yeah, it's so
you know.
complex.
Yeah, finding a therapist or a counselor that fits you is going to do way better things for your mental health as well instead of just having one that everyone's like, hey, you should go to them. Because I've done that too. Like, I'm always just like, hey, because I only know one counselor. I've been to a counselor. Like, I mean, I don't really think anything of it. I think she helped me like crazy. I didn't really go through a ton of trauma at all. I think I just had about bad self esteem, and she helped me see that. Yeah, it worked for me, but just because she worked out with me doesn't mean it's going to work out for everybody.
Yeah, and I would think just in general, of course, a Christian counselor
Yes.
is very beneficial.
Yeah.
But yeah, and people that say, like, oh, this is a spiritual problem, like, why would you go get help, you know? Like, I guess I sort of thought of the analogy of, like, if it is a mental, I think there are mental illnesses that we can't control. Like the one doctor said that I heard. He said that Christians can be the hardest to treat because they over spiritualize things. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking about your thoughts, they just assume that all thinking is spiritual. But if you have a mental disorder, it comes along with spiritual symptoms,
Yeah.
but it still needs that physical treatment.
Right.
And people say, oh, but like the Bible says, fear, anxiety, it's a spiritual issue. The Bible says, be anxious for nothing. But, oh, and I'm not educated on this at all. But anxiety disorder equals you physically can't stop worrying about whatever it is that you have anxiety about. It's a chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
And so in that case, in the same way, and people might just, they tend to say more like, oh, just pray about it, God will take it away. But the analogy that I thought of is just like God has the ability to heal a broken leg. Like, yes, we can pray for any physical problem that we have. God has the ability to heal that, but do we
Right.
not go to the doctor to fix our leg?
Yeah, exactly.
No. So in the same way, he has the ability to heal our mental illness. But does that mean we don't go to the doctor for help?
Yeah.
I think it's completely fine.
Yeah, it's stupid. Okay, I shouldn't say the word stupid. I'll be gentle with my words. I think it's kind of sad whenever, I think Christians do this a lot, or I mean just people in general. They don't give themselves grace that they're human. Like, are you God? No, you're human. To take that away from Christ of letting us be human, I think that's kind of just sad. And like something I thought of, like kind of what Renee said about anxiety. What'd you say? Anxiety disorder?
Yeah,
What you said? Okay.
disorder.
Anxiety disorder.
The words that the doctor used.
Okay. Like that's something like that is your body telling you something's wrong. Like a lot of people are just like, yeah, I just have anxiety, or yeah, I just have depression. Okay, that's your body telling you something's wrong. Like it's like when you're having a sore throat, or you're, you rolled your ankle and your ankle's stiff. Like that's because something bad happened, and your body's telling you like, hey, I hurt, help me please. I think that's kind of where I think that kind of goes down the line of like, why do we have anxiety? Why do we have depression? That's our body telling us something's wrong. So, okay, this is like super weird just because of the person I heard it from. It was one of the girls that played in Riverdale. She was on an interview, and she was like, I don't know it word for word, but she was like, pretty much whatever you believe in. Let's say you're pretty much like a robot, and imagine feeling nothing, like you had no feelings, and whatever you believed in was like, hey, would you like to go experience for a short period of time all the feelings you could ever imagine and have it in one short period of time? Would we take it? I would think so. Like, she pretty much was like, it doesn't feel like a short time because it's life. Like, I mean, people live to be like 90 years old and older, obviously. But like, imagine feeling nothing. And maybe people feel like that. Maybe they feel like they don't feel anything and they're just numb. Would you rather get to experience every single feeling ever, or none at all? I think it's cool that we get to experience everything. And like, let's say she says whenever she's like in one of those hard times where she's feeling anxiety, or if she's feeling a little depressed, she like steps back and it's just like, hey, wait a second. I'm human. I get to be human. This is one of the feelings humans experience. So let me just be in this feeling, admitting like, hey, you know what? I'm feeling very anxious today. That's totally fine. And admitting it, I feel like, is a huge part of getting over something too. I don't know.
And I feel like as a Christian struggling with mental health, that just because you are a Christian doesn't mean that it just goes away.
Right.
But I think, yeah, like you said, it's like we're human. That happens. But I think the cool thing is that we can handle it differently. We can take control of it more so than letting it control us. Yeah, there's so many ways to do that.
Right. There was one thing I found. and I'm not sure if this is what all counselors do or no, but there's like different types of like methods for counseling. The one I found was classical conditioning, finding the source of what gives you problems. And a lot of people, I think, don't think of how deep that could be. So there's a classic one. And this one, I don't think I agree with it. Desensitize counseling. So it's getting someone used to the phobia of whatever it is. It popped up on my Instagram and it was one of the Kardashians. They're pretty much like they have super insane OCD and have to have everything perfect. And she had her fridge is like in rainbow color.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lady that came in and was like trying to help her like ease that. So she switched two colors. And whichever one it was, she was just like so the counselor lady was like, "How does this make you feel?" And she was like, I'm really excited for you to leave." um I don't know if I agree with the desensitized method. I think that's kind of, but maybe it is good. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
there's so many different ways to approach different kinds of mental illness, and yeah, I'm not an expert, so that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Another one was a parent learning how to reward or punish, changing the mind cycle. I didn't know exactly how to think of that, but pretty much like let's say you have a normal routine in your day, like reward yourself for doing something you did good that day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if necessarily punishing yourself is a very good thing. I think sometimes it definitely could be. I think sometimes people gloss over things that people have done just because, like, oh, I don't want to punish them because they might not ever tell me anything ever again. But then a lot of times I think people's minds go to, hey, they weren't as mad as I thought. So maybe it's fine. So like
Yeah.
punishing in the right ways, knowing like not necessarily just for parenting, but even like yourself, like knowing what's going to make you not ever want to do that again, or like have that thought in your brain. Like what's going to make you not ever want to have that thought in your brain ever again. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
Yeah.
And then cognitive kind of goes with it. It says changing slash repeating. So like repeating the good mindsets, and then changing the bad ones. And then the last one I have is Gestalt. It says being aware of what is actually happening, not of what your mind is playing. So this takes us to a whole new world of mental health. So I was told this story. I don't know the details, but pretty much this one girl, she dealt with some for mental illness. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was like pretty much she just had voices in her head telling her to do things.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard for her to know if it was someone actually talking to her or if it was just voices in her head.
Mm-hmm.
And the one time it was really bad, and it told her, like, she was on a walk and she was by a beach, and I guess there was like a puddle or something in the sand or something, and there was a voice in her head that said, "Go put your face in the puddle." And she like looked around and nobody was there, and like I think she started going towards it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she was about to do it, and there was someone walking past, and like I was like, why did the person not stop her?
Mm-hmm.
But if you see someone at the beach, like kind of being weird, like not sure what they're doing, your brain is more just be like, what the frick is happening? What are
Yeah.
they doing?
Yeah.
But right before she stuck her head in the puddle, she heard the name Jesus, and the person who was walking past her, there was a voice that told him to go to her. Like, I don't care if you think that's mental things going on, that's demon possessed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it is crazy how little I think we know how much demons can do. in life. I was listening to, I had to be so careful with how much I studied on this because I listened to, like, I don't even know how long the video was, but I listened to a video of people who either had suicide in their life or has dealt with suicide personally.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the people were talking about how the one day this lady walked into her house and she found her husband and he hung himself.
My goodness.
And then, like, driving and stuff, she would see him with the rope around his neck. And then, like, the one lady, her husband committed suicide. And then, like, in her dreams, he would tell her to come join him. In my opinion, that is not their significant others. That is demons.
Mm.
And, like, I think it's so easy for us to gloss over that kind of stuff because it's
Yeah.
like, no, it's just my mind. No, demons are a huge thing. And I don't know if any of you watch is it The Conjuring or The Conjuring?
The Conjuring.
Okay. I don't know if it was it, no, I think it was the couple that was, like, in it, or, like, there was a couple that had, like, tried to help with, like, spirits in houses and stuff. I watched one of those, and I will never ever watch the others because
Yep. I think I watched it with you.
Yeah, me, you, and Emma and Tyrell watched it. Yeah.
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 Anyways, like, that brought demons to a whole new light to me, and I was terrified for my life. And that night we were in Grantsville, and we had Emma just had told us, like, hey, like, someone called me and told me that there's been this guy walking around, so, like, be careful. And I was like, what the freak? We have to go outside to my car. What if we get kidnapped by this guy? Anyways.
Yeah. That movie was definitely not good for our mental health.
Facts. Literally, I was going to say this later, but I'll say this now because it deals with it. I can't remember. Yeah, I said this. So I am adopted. I'm from Russia, and my parents were gypsies. A couple years ago, while I was still living at home, at night, I would wake up and I would think I would see someone standing there. It always looked like a guy in a top hat. I don't know why. It's just like he had his magic hat on, you know? Or sometimes I would wake up and think my sister was standing over me, and then I'd be like, Kirsten, what do you want? Mm-hmm. And she wouldn't respond, and I'd turn on the light, and there was nothing there. And I wasn't worried about it. I was just like, it's just like a sleep paralysis thing. Like, my eyes are just not adjusted to what's actually going on, and my mind's just playing tricks on me. But then I told my mom about it because it was happening a lot. And she told me that gypsies worship demons. She was pretty much like, this is what I think Satan is trying to do. I think Satan is trying to play from your past into your present with demons. Because it was a part of your parents' life. Why can he not mess with you now? You know?
Yeah.
And I prayed about it. And I think I've dealt with it twice since then. And the one time it was just, like, I thought a dog ran into my room. And it was, like, my sister's little puppy. And I was like, what the freaking tar is a dog doing in here? But obviously I wasn't scared of that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be surprised, too, if, like, even just demons saying, like, putting little thoughts in your head of, like, of different worries. And then that could create anxiousness or stress. I think we need to give Satan more credit than what we give him, because people are always just like, Satan's not that big of a deal. He doesn't have no power. Satan has a ton of power. Jesus has power over Satan, but that doesn't mean Satan does not have any power. Satan has a ton of power.
I think there's probably a lot of times when there's a spiritual battle going on and people write it off as a mental illness or you're crazy or whatever.
Yeah.
And a majority of the time it could be very spiritual.
Right.
The mind is a battlefield, but I think it's just cool to think that, like, God's word is sharper than any two-edged sword. And like I said, as Christians, we know the truth. And so we have the tools and the weapons to fight against a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the more people that would realize that and apply it to their mental health, it would make a huge difference.
Yeah. I was hearing different stories of celebrities who have struggled. There was one girl who I don't think she was religious at all, really. And one of her best friends was religious, and he just kept praying for her and was telling her, "Hey, like God is literally waiting for you. All you have to do is just like let him in." And her best friend ended up dying, and she went nuts. She pretty much just like life was just not really even something she wanted to be in. And she had a close call the one time, and one of her other friends found her, and she ended up going and getting help. She's in a much better mental state now. She was like, she wishes she could have talked more about religion with her friend that had passed. And now she
Mm-hmm.
says I think she said she would be religious now. It's becoming more of a thing, I feel like, for celebrities who go through crap for days and they come out on the other side and they would say they're religious. There's something really powerful about that, I feel like.
How many celebrities have mental issues, and people are wondering, you know, they have a good life, like why
Yeah.
are they struggling?
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is they're looking to fill, like, no matter how famous you are, no matter how rich you are,
Mhm.
that's not going to cure the problem.
Right.
Um and another thing I was thinking about was, or a huge thing that affects our mental health, I think, is like where we turn to for comfort when we are
Yeah.
feeling that way and when we are
Yeah.
struggling. Because I think a lot of times, especially with mental health issues, what we feel like doing, what we think is going to help, is going to do the exact opposite. It's
Right.
almost,
Yeah.
I think it always takes discipline to, I mean, just like it is in your, like, physically, spiritually, it takes discipline to just make a different choice
Right.
that you know is going to be better for you after.
Yeah.
The right choice is to do what's best for your mental health. And I think that could be an issue too. A lot of people that are looking for that comfort in other places, and then
Mhm.
it's just spiraling. Yeah, and then a verse that I had thought of with that too is Romans 12:2. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. I think that goes with, yeah, the ways of this world
Mhm.
are not going to renew your mind
Yeah.
like Christ will.
I think this was kind of stemming down the line of what Renee said of where do you go to help that thing that you're struggling with? I can get so worked up about this. I heard a story recently of Christian man owned a business, had a good family. His kids were getting ready to leave for school. I don't think they were gone for school yet. And he was in his garage and he tried to commit suicide, but failed. And I think he blacked out and then woke up and he walked into the house and his wife called 911. But like knew. No one knew what
Mm-hmm.
he was struggling with. I think they said later that like there were some signs of something going on, but no one really thought about it. That's why like I feel like I try to be very very observant because normally the people that don't talk about what they're struggling with are the people who are in the most critical situations. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if that's not necessarily true for everybody, but there's something just about people who they're not just telling everyone what they're struggling with and like talking to your friends. Like, yeah, your friends are there for you, but especially like dealing with suicide or anything like that is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had a couple people in my lifetime who have struggled with suicide. Um, and that I like for me because I'm a fixer type of person. I want to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I am like, what the tar? This is not okay. Like, what is wrong? I need to figure everything out and I need to just help them. That's not
Mm-hmm.
my place. That is a huge thing to deal with. also, like, telling someone that, like, that's huge on them. I think it would be really hard for someone to not feel the weight of being responsible for someone if they tell you that they're suicidal. Like, there's some people who don't tell anyone and then they end up committing suicide. And then there's people who just tell everyone, or if they cut, they put it in places that are very public.
Mhm.
There was this one video I saw of this girl. She cut a lot, and it was really, really bad. She did it on her arms, and she made the comment. She was like scrolling through her Instagram or something, and she was scrolling through people's cutting posts, and she would try to find out what their technique was, and then
Mhm.
she wanted to try to find it, and then she would want to post it because she was like she looked at the likes on the post, and she was like, that's like 15,000 likes, like people like this stuff.
Mhm.
What are you doing? Why are you putting that out there for attention? In no way, shape, or form is that okay. And I hate like when people use different things to try to get attention. Or like even people, I think people should be a lot more careful with what words they use. One of my cousins said that they were depressed. And I was like, are you like actually depressed, or are you just sad about something? She was just like, I'm just sad about something. Calm down. I was
Mhm.
like, but in some ways, like, I think it is very important with what words we use, because let's say you're feeling depressed. Look at people who are actually depressed. Some of them literally struggle to get out of bed. If one of those people would get enough, I don't know, energy to come to something, and then they would hear that someone's depressed, what are they going to think? Like, you don't even know what depression is. I think for the people that use things for attention, I mean, she had a cutting issue. Obviously, her arms were totally marked up.
Mhm.
But I did know that her mother had died, and her dad was just not in the picture. From from that, it sounds like there's abandonment issues, and like, I don't know, being afraid of, she's wanting attention,
Mhm.
but not in the sense of I just want attention, but like she needs it. Like you
Mhm.
need to feel loved, or that just is a crappy situation to be in. So I try to remember that. Like if I hear people just posting pictures or something on social media, or like whatever they're saying on social media, I try to remember like, hey, something's still wrong here.
Mhm.
They do need something,
Yeah.
but in the right way, and not the 15,000 likes type of attention, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone has but yeah, I think everyone has different levels of mental health struggles,
Right.
whether it's something that's actually diagnosed or like just the fact that we're all built differently, we all think differently, we all have weaknesses and tendencies
Right.
that affect our mental health.
Yeah.
And our mental health affects the way we feel, the way we act,
Yeah.
and how we respond to stressful situations, stuff like that, and how
Yeah.
we relate to people.
Right.
I think in most of those situations, it is something spiritual. I mean, like I said, there's many factors, many things that go into your mental health.
Mhm.
Like just those daily choices, like I said, to discipline yourself.
Right.
I think it does go back to not claiming truth for yourself in your heart.
Yeah.
Um, I can think of 3 times in my own life when I could have said I had, or like where I had a panic attack of some sort
Mhm.
that you would attach to a mental health problem.
Right.
I don't have, yeah, I don't consider myself to struggle with anything like anxiety or depression. Maybe some levels of it, but not like actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the first time I was, it was anxiety. I was putting too much pressure on myself to live up to a certain standard, and I was just freaking out. The second time was related to trauma. I was in a car accident with my brother, And I still struggle with this. Like with nighttime driving, I think I have like nighttime driving anxiety. And I'm still unsure how trauma is something that I don't know. Like that's an interesting one.
Right.
um
When there's trauma
how
behind.
do you how do you remedy that? But I
Yeah.
think anyway, I was on driving home with my friends from McDonald's and a deer went out on the road and she slammed on the brakes super hard and we had to pull over to the side of the road because I was hyperventilating. I was struggling. I was shaking, struggling to breathe. I was having a panic attack um,
Mm-hmm.
because of that trauma of driving in the dark and something bad happening.
Right.
And then the third time, it was my junior year of high school, and I was playing volleyball.
Oh, I remember
You remember
this.
this?
I remember this. This was at like, was
Is
it regionals or
yeah,
something? Yeah.
yeah.
This was crazy, guys.
And that week, I was struggling, and honestly, looking back on that entire year, I I think I can say like I didn't realize it then, but looking back on it now, I think I can say that I was somewhat depressed. I mean, I don't want to, like you say, use the word wrong.
Right.
But yeah, and we were playing volleyball, and I was having terrible thoughts about myself, lies,
Mm-hmm.
and I think like it was, and that was a spiritual attack.
Yeah.
And it affected me physically.
Mm-hmm.
So, was it a mental health problem? Maybe it was just a spiritual thing that was affecting me
Yeah.
physically. And I think in each one of those situations, I was failing to believe truth.
Mm-hmm.
Truth that I was good enough. Truth that God was protecting me. Truth that I'm not trash. I don't suck. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
that I have something to offer.
Right.
And I think it was a spiritual issue that affected me physically.
Yeah.
I don't know where all this is coming from.
Well, hey, not gonna lie, this was part of it. I was gonna say we should say our own experiences of trauma or whatever.
Yeah.
So, what do you go? You segued into that without me saying anything.
That's a huge question that I've had thinking about this subject. Is it spiritual or is it physical? Or yeah, is it physical or is it a spiritual thing that's affecting me physically? So
That's a tough one.
yeah.
I think there could be both.
Yeah, I think there is both.
I think there's both.
But I do think there's too many times when we write it off as a physical issue when a majority of the time I would like to think a majority of the time it's spiritual.
Right. So thinking of, I guess, like struggles or anything that you're struggling, like anything, like being anxious, being depressed, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people just don't want to try to get better. And that is up to them. We're all human. We have our own choices. You cannot make someone make a choice. They get to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And so like one thing with that is like wanting to choose to get better. I don't know if I technically agree with this statement, but I kind of do at the same time. The statement is life doesn't get harder, you handle hard better. Let's say you deal with anxiety. Like so for Renee, she's had trauma of like in her accident, her anxiousness for nighttime driving. She could just let that totally get her every time she drives at night. No one likes to feel anxious. No one likes to feel depressed. If there's a way to fix that, would you not want to try? And is it worth trying to figure out what can fix that for you personally? The people that go through the most crap in their life are the people that more than likely make the biggest difference.
Mm-hmm.
Learning from what you've experienced, learning how you came over whatever it was that you struggled with, and now you get to share it with the world. Not necessarily that's going to help everybody, but
That's cool that you say that. One of the things that this one girl said, God isn't always most glorified in the healing, but sometimes he's more glorified in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe as Christians that struggle, like Christians that are struggling with mental health issues, maybe God chooses not to fix it. Maybe it's just something that he allows you to struggle through. And then that goes with the verse, blessed are those that mourn, for they shall be comforted. So when we're struggling emotionally or we're anxious or depressed, I think we can consider it a blessing almost, because that's when God shows up. That's when he comforts us, and that's when we're forced to lean on him. Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah, or even in, you might not feel like God is fixing it right now, but then you come on the other side and you're just like, wow, I used to struggle with that,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm over here. Look at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you might still be struggling with it, but
You might.
you know better how to handle it and how to fight against it. Yeah, like if you struggle with lies and negative thoughts, we must take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just those kinds of things where it's like we realize that we have the power to fight against it. Just make those choices to say no. I believe truth.
Wow. What a good podcast. Moral of the story is believe truth. Believe in yourself. Humans don't give themselves enough credit of what we're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
We're capable of pretty insane things, whether we want to believe that or not. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to share about your experiences with anything or whatnot?
Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to share in general as far as
Mm-hmm.
my own thing. Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, I do think that I struggle with certain things, especially one big thing is like with my job. It seems like it does not take much for me to get very stressed when I know that something stressful is coming. I
Yeah.
just have to, like, I used to, and like I think I'm getting better at it. The way I respond to it,
Solid.
because I used to just kind of get stressed and frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
and it would show. But now I feel like I'm kind of learning different tools, different disciplinary things where I just have to take a deep breath, and it's like I should know by now just to stay calm, but it happens every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that can maybe be fixed, but when it does happen, like I said, I just take a deep breath. I tell myself that I can do it, just one thing at a time. Yeah, just doing that seems to help.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a process. We all have our weaknesses and tendencies, and process to learn what that is, and also just relying on God and relying on truth. But yes, the one quote that I think it was from Craig's sermon that we listened to. Real peace isn't found in the absence of problems, but real peace is found in the presence of God. That was one thing that stuck out to me a lot, and I think that about sums it up.
Yeah. Facts.
It's our God isn't going to fix our mental health.
Yeah.
All the time. He has the ability to, and we can pray about it,
Mm-hmm.
and he can do that, but I think there are times when he just uses those kinds of things to just like any other struggle or sin problem.
Right.
It's not just going to go away, but it's those things that allow us to rely on him.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think if I have anything more. I was very worried about doing this podcast just because we are not experts, and I didn't know how people would react to this. But for some reason, it just kept coming back to my brain. So if this helps at least one person, it's worth it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I get lots of hate for it. If I helped one person, if we helped one person, but get hate from everybody else. It's worth it. It's fine. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. Yeah, this was a very enjoyable podcast. This was a very long process to get to this podcast, but we wanted to do some research before we just dove right on into it. So, yes, the next podcast is going to be probably with my husband Tyrell about eternity. So we're really excited about that. And yeah, pretty much I'm planning on every 2 weeks I will try to be coming out with one. So I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this podcast. Oh, I was gonna say this as well. If you want to find out like more about the podcasts or like when they're coming out, you can follow my Instagram. That's where I post it the most. You can follow Unpredictable KL_ great content, or just Karina Moss. Go follow that. Hope you guys enjoy this podcast. Thank you so much, Renee.
My pleasure.
For coming on this podcast. Thanks so much.
Yep.
I appreciated it a lot. Anyways, see you guys later.